and welcome to another We Are Developers Live. My voice is croaky, I don't know what's going on. But on the other hand, spring has sprung. It's really wonderful and colorful and sunny outside, and people here in Germany are all tending to their gardens to make sure that everything is like orthogonal and like perfect and the right length. So how's it in England then?
Yeah, do you know what? For a change, it's actually nice and sunny as well. I can actually say the same thing as you and say we've also got the sun. I mean, I know we mentioned it last week, but it makes a massive difference. And I mean, how's it been though for the last week? 'Cause you've been traveling across several countries and you
I've
literally
been
arrived last
Vienna,
night.
Berlin, London, and it's been different everywhere. London was warmer, but also wetter. And Vienna is colder than Berlin, and Berlin is just the middle of it. So it's all good. But it's the when you live in England, like you sooner or later you learn that layers are a great thing. Yeah, you never wear one thing; you always wear like 4 or 5 layers and take things off and put them on as you need to. So I think that's the thing to go anywhere, especially when traveling, because that's another big change all the time as we are as well.
Yeah.
Well, we are here for another We Are Developers Live. We got a few links to talk about. And first of all, I want to introduce our guest today. It's a good friend of mine of years and years. It's Dirk Inader. And he's an accessibility lead at Google.
Yes. Hi, thanks for inviting me.
So what's A11? No, let's not talk about it. Do you also get I mean, Americans came up with that they call it Alley. And I mean, Alley is a thing as well, but it's a different DEI thing than actually accessibility. And I find that always weird when people not realize it's just abbreviation for accessibility because it's 11 characters between the A and the Y.
It by itself is an accessibility issue, to be fair. Like making something so hard to understand and pronounce while trying to be inclusive is not ideal.
Ironically, the word accessibility has this problem as well. I always wonder, like, how many C's and how many S's, and like, in a small font and the wrong font, the ILI next to each other also looks very, very bad. So it's not helpful.
Yeah, I would like to claim that I can definitely spell that word perfectly every time I write it, because I've been, like in this space for 20 something years. I still very regularly get the characters wrong and then rely on autocorrect.
Well, I mean, my favorite was always doing CSS trainings and people having to pronounce specificity, because that really doesn't work at all most of the time as well. And I just got it because in my head, I just cut it into like different syllables. So specificity, I always concentrate on the city and then I actually pronounce it the right way. So that's one way to work around that. So what's your job as an accessibility lead? Is it like a cross project? Is it across products? Is it making the guidelines? Is it making sure that people know what an alternative text is? Or what's your day-to-day life there?
Yeah, so I manage a team of software engineers, and together we're working on tooling to allow our Googlers to produce the most accessible products possible. And we're working like across the entire product life cycle. So we're building tooling for designers, we're building linters, we're building then checkers afterwards. There's like this whole set of tools that we're maintaining. And then we're also working very closely with our internal standards team, which is defining on what we're defining as accessible, very closely related to WCAG, but even stricter.
Without giving away signals, without giving away secrets, because this is not Signal. Do you also have internal guidelines that are actually stricter than the ones out there? Remember, Microsoft had like the WCAG ones, but also some hardcore internal ones that needed extra features.
Yeah, that's really the case. So we have our own internal set of standards. They are very much derived from WCAG. In some ways are just like easier and stricter. Like one of the classics is like, if you read WCAG, there's this A button needs to be 48 by 48 unless it's this, and then it's 32 by 32, and unless then it might be smaller. And for us, it's 48 by 48, and you must not get smaller. So it's stricter and easier to comprehend.
I mean, a bit of backstory. Dirk and me know each other for a long, long time. I think the first one was a form camp in 2005 where we met in person.
You remember that?
unconference about forms.
I was not sure what year. Yes, but that was amazing. That was at the Yahoo office in Munich, wasn't it?
Correct, yeah. And I was sent over to do YUI training with people, and then we added that form cap at the end, where we just talked about like what's broken in forms. And interestingly enough, this just came out with like new feature sets from Apple for styling form fields and overriding the forms right now. But I just remember that was, holy crap, 20 years ago. And yeah.
Yeah, we're old.
And then
Yeah.
I forced people to hire Dirk, and which then forced him to move to England. And then when Yahoo thought English engineers are expensive and not near enough in the Silicon Valley, they closed their office in London. And everybody who wanted to stay with the company had to move to Silicon Valley. So I forced you to go to the Silicon Valley. And now you're back in Switzerland because rent was not expensive enough in the Silicon Valley, or what was the reason to go back to Switzerland?
Yeah, we found the one place where it's more expensive. No, like you're right. Like I had an absolute blast in London. It was only 2 years. It felt both longer and not nearly long enough. And then when Yahoo made that decision, it was like, okay, you can either find a new place to work or have a all expenses paid relocation to California, which was and still sounds like a very easy decision. And then I was working for another 2-3 years for Yahoo in Sunnyvale at the headquarters, which was nice, until I joined Google, and that is now 12 years ago as well. Yeah, we have some family here in Switzerland, so that was one of the driving factors.
Plus, yeah, I mean, you don't just randomly go to Switzerland unless you have to hide or something, or there's like you have too much money that needs not taxing and these kind of things.
That's it. It's all the money.
Okay, let's take a look at some of the things we can talk about today. And the first one is that came from you, and we talked about that last year when it came out as well. But it's the Web A Million. So every year, Web Accessibility in Mind, one of the biggest and oldest accessibility information sites out there, does like a report on the 1 million homepages, like the biggest trafficked websites out there, and shows the results, which is every year rather frustrating, isn't it?
Well, ish, right? So if you go through the data, yes, it clearly shows you what is all still broken and things are still all broken. But it's all about a perspective, right? Like I read a post by Eric Eggert on LinkedIn just yesterday about this, who was like, there's like a increase, like a decrease of automatically detectable issues over the last 3 years that went down by like 1 point something %. And while that sounds minuscule, it is over 1% of issues that went down. And I feel like this is still something that needs to be celebrated. And I thank Eric for that context, because I too looked at the chart and was like, yeah, it's going down, but very slowly. But if you think about the actual numbers behind it, it is valuable.
Mm-hmm. Or is it because everybody just replaced their website with an app or an LLM bot?
I have yet to see a good amount of really well accessibly built AI bots. I don't think those are the solution, at least not yet right now.
So Dan, did you take a peek at that as well? Because we want to take it apart for the magazine again. We're going to write an article about this, because I think it's always an amazing amount of insight into that one. And I have to prepare a talk as well about on the 10th of April about that. I'm going to use the information on that one again. But this is just frustrating, finding out that the errors that we find are the same years and years. And it's like very simple things that should not happen, like low contrast tags and empty links.
Yeah. I mean, that was kind of what I tried to do really by looking at it, was sort of take a step back and say, like, what does it actually tell us about the direction of travel? And yeah, I think there's there's some hope, there's some frustration, and then there's some everything staying the same. So I think, like you just mentioned there, Chris, that the most common issues that are coming up, low contrast text, which was 81% of the pages that were flagged, missing alt text, missing form labels, empty links, empty buttons, the usual things. But there's some other quite interesting things, I think, happening when you kind of drill down a little bit. So one was that the sort of big summary, really, where it was looking at error density, and it was essentially saying that 4.1% of pages contain these detectable accessibility errors. And then they put it into this sentence where they say, effectively, for a user with disabilities, this means that they're going to encounter an error in about 1 of every 24 elements which they engage with. Now, to me, that feels actually like it's a little bit low, and that they probably encounter issues with a higher number than like 1 in 24. That feels low, but it still makes you think. Imagine using a website and one of every 24 things that you could interact with, you simply cannot interact with. That's quite a shocking thing. And finally, just to finish on that, was that and we'll get to it later, the impact of ARIAs being used. They were saying that this is quadrupled since 2019. They've almost become popular, or people have started to use them, or whatever the reasons are. I wondered if, and we'll get to this later, whether that kind of thing might be where AI is playing a role, perhaps, because AI will sometimes throw ARIA labels on when somebody wouldn't use it, and just by it being there, maybe that's part of the reason, perhaps, that we're seeing this kind of increase. But who knows? But yeah, really, really interesting article. There's a lot to be said there, and I'd love to know, Dirk, when you read that, though, does that, as an overall conclusion, do you feel like hope? This is great. There's some real nuggets of promise in there, or is it actually this is quite depressing to read?
Yeah, it's like Chris said, like this report has been coming out for as long as I can remember, and the general feeling of it is always very similar, right? Like, yes, there's lots of issues. Yes, there is ever so slightly fewer issues than the year before. The things that are just like make me lose my hair, yes, I'm going to blame that, is the fact yes, yeah, you have no problems at all. Is the fact that so many of the issues that are being found are automatically detectable, right? Which because this is not even trying to like go beyond those that are automatically detectable, which is only a fraction of all of the issues that exist. Right. So when I'm working with my team here, and I'm trying to help Googlers, it's like, okay, all of the things that can be detected automatically are being detected automatically, and you as a designer, as an engineer, as anybody on that long life cycle, are being screamed at by machine. That tells you, I found this issue because it's automatically detectable. And here, ideally, is a way for you to quick fix it. And then they cannot launch until that happens, right? And then only then the manual testing even starts. Now, all of the things we're seeing here are those things that are today very conveniently receivable, right? Like everybody has the opportunity to have a Figma plugin, to have a browser plugin that tells you as you're doing it, that you're doing it wrong, and that you ideally need to fix it, and how you can fix it most of the time as well. And the fact that it's still only going down that slowly, yes, that is a little damping, but it is going down. It's at least not going up, right?
I think one of the bits is that what I love is that when I worked on the Edge extension for VS Code, for example, that it actually tells you, based on WebHint, that it tells you while you're coding that you're doing it wrong, rather than like just on deployment or just on CI/CD. It actually, while you're typing the thing, it does it wrong. But I guess that's where the failure comes in. People don't type things by hand anymore. I guess a lot of these things are just components that have these hidden accessibility issues in them. And if a company doesn't have gatekeeping like Google does, or what Microsoft had as well, that you cannot release it if there's still bugs left, then these just fall through the cracks and get like basically put live, and nobody's the wiser. Like, I guess people choose like tab controls or things like that that are not part of the normal web platform that the React super npm package with cool styling, blah, whatever has, and nobody bothers with the accessibility of it because it's not being flagged up as an error. Wouldn't it be great if browsers just would annoy you more about this? That basically says like, oh, I can't render this, so I'm not going to show it. But I guess as browser makers, we cannot do that because it would break the web.
It would very badly break the web, yeah. But like what you just mentioned really makes me think. Like I might have either overlooked it or it's really not there. Like what would make a really nice addition to that report would be to have a section of issues found in the page that are caused by known libraries, right? That would make such a difference and would put some nice pressure on the owner and maintainer of those libraries as well.
I think that's with all these surveys. Like when we had the other day, we had the state of JavaScript survey, and it showed like that like 60% of the internet is still using jQuery. And I'm pretty much sure that's just all the WordPress installations, because when you have a WordPress installation, it loads jQuery, even if you, for the editor part of it, even on your live site, unless you're specifically stopping your template from doing that. So basically, it's I guess a lot of the numbers there is basically not in this accessibility report, but in the other reports, it's like just things that have been published and never taken off, or like not configured to basically throw the kitchen sink at it, rather than just only render what's necessary. Now, one of the things working in accessibility, as long as we have, it's very easy to become a grumpy old bastard and basically just be unhappy with everything, because it's so frustrating to see the same problems over and over again. But then you have, talking about grumpy old bastards, I saw that Carl Groves, who we might get here as well sooner or later, because he's another good friend of mine, just had this post about the AI being the future of accessibility, which is, of course, the huge headline for every AI company and their brother and their dog here. But I mean, he points out that like sooner or later, we will just have to deal with the fact that a lot of the stuff will be AI generated, and we have to think about it. And Nielsen, the big UX UI guru, said the same thing. He said, like, for 20 years, we tried to make interfaces accessible for every people with all kind of issues out there. We completely failed at it. We might as well use AI to generate interfaces on demand. Do you think that's something where we're going, or do you think that's still wasteful at the moment?
That's a lot of question, a lot of answers there. Like first, this post, I believe, is Carl's reaction to a statement that came from a big accessibility company that they released while the CSUN conference was going on a couple of weeks ago. And they basically mentioned, we're going to detect 100% of all accessibility issues using AI. And then the entire accessibility community was like, shitstorm. And then they pedaled back and said, no, it's like in the next 10 years or so, right? His post is much more reflected, and I encourage you to all to like read through it. I think what he's touching on there is all of the opportunities that do in fact exist, right? From my point of view, looking at the AI has massive opportunities in terms of trying to prevent issues in the first place, right? The amount of code being generated these days using AI is already ridiculously big and only growing further. So we, for the first time, have the opportunity to teach not millions of developers to understand accessibility and how to use it properly, but to teach, to train a handful of machine learning models on getting the details correct and understanding what is important to make a UI accessible. And if that can be done, and more code is being generated using those models in the future, then that could in fact be a massive opportunity in reducing real issues out in the wild, which I would celebrate, right? Like if that would work, I'm all for it. Right now, this is something that I guess people are working on. What I see more often is them like trying to like use AI as like some kind of like magic quick fix to like put on top of existing websites and say, hey, look, it's fixed now. And it never is, right? This is just not the case, and more often than not makes it worse. So if we can
overlay
like,
debate, wasn't it? Like when
that is exactly that, right? Like if you're like thinking, hey, I pay like $10 a month, and this one plugin makes everything go wild. No, it's not going to happen. But then there's so many other opportunities, right? Like the things that he's mentioning is using AI in helping communicate, right? Like there is active work being done, and my team here in Zurich is actually working closely with one of the professors at the university in Zurich to create a AI model that allows real-time translation from spoken word or written word to sign language, which could in fact be absolutely amazing, right? And this is work that's being done. There's money invested, and this will eventually work, and it will help communicate in a way that is right now not possible thanks to AI, right? There's opportunities in all of these directions. Then there's also things like, I don't need to put an alt text on that image anymore because the browsers now have that built in, and you can just have an alt text auto-generated when it's missing. Again, not the solution, right? Because, and this is something I've been repeating way too often, like you as the author of the page have a completely different insight on what this image means for you on that page, and only you can transport that information on that page. And an AI can tell you, yes, there's a dog on that picture, but only you can give the insight. So please don't stop adding alt text.
It would be interesting if it's going to go the other direction, seeing that AI is used for image generation, that people just put like a prompt in there as an alt text and generate the image automatically from it. So that might be the next thing that Gemini can do in Chrome, that you basically, if you have an alt prompt, and then it actually generates the image on the fly every single time, a different one for you, and every single time some other eye wonky or 7 fingers instead of 6, or these kind of things. We had it last time. The guy from Drupal had this big article where he had like 4,000 images with alternative text, and used like different models how to actually generate a good alternative text. Yeah. And I think it's a legal thing that saves you from not having done anything, but 90% of the time it's just completely off. It's just and yeah, as you said, an alt text should not describe what the image looks like, but what it means. And yes. and LLM cannot do that.
That's exactly the difference, right? Like what you just mentioned reminded me. So I've forgotten to mention that. Like I'm one of the leads of the Accessibility Discovery Center here at Google in Zurich. There's a couple of those in across Europe. There's just one in London, Dan, relevant for you. Nice. There's one in Berlin as well, Chris. Cool. No, wait, it's Munich. Never mind. But
same thing.
It's relevant anyway. Like it's a location where we're showing off accessible tech and how this technology can help. The reason why I just remembered that is because you mentioned this artist, and I remembered one of the tours I gave had an artist here from Zurich, Bildhauer. What do you say in English? Doesn't matter.
Stonemason.
Stonemason, thank you. Amazing artist, and he has a website, and he picked me afterwards saying, hey, thanks for this tour, and thanks for the workshop, and I now want to make that website accessible. And he ran like the X test against, and was like, okay, there's that many 100 pictures that are missing in alt text. And he was like, can I not like use something to do this for me? And he's an artist. He wants to communicate something through his art, through his hands, and yet he was not willing to like put that knowledge about the image in there, which was like, I thought, yeah, sure, you can run an AI against it, but what's the point? The AI does not know what you want to communicate.
It's interesting because when I worked at Microsoft, there were lots of like demos internally, and I don't think it's actually live yet, but they were thinking about like anytime there's audio on the page, it would automatically transcribe it from the operating system or from Edge itself. I think with Google, Chrome, Gemini, you have similar things in the making, especially with the on-device AI stuff. We had just the Web Development AI Day last week, where Thomas Steiner showed a few of those things. And yeah, it's the same thing there. Like, I mean, you can save your legal butt by having auto-generated captions on your video. But if you ever looked at like YouTube videos where it was auto-generated, yeah, then you see it's really not that perfect. And if you say naughty words, it actually doesn't do them. I mean, PowerPoint has that built in as well. So in PowerPoint, if you actually speak, you can have captions, and you can actually turn them into another language. So you can actually have you can speak in English, and it shows it in German. So these are all cool convenience methods, and I think they're interesting to use, and you should embrace them as well. But a proper transcription or a proper alternative text is something that probably should done by the human who actually uploaded that image and wanted to convey what it means, rather than like what it looks like.
Yeah, 100%. But then like the auto transcribe feature that is built into a lot of the operating systems now, that is pure gold, right? Like if you're watching like live TV or like a part of a video conference, having something like this transcribed for you, allow you to like read along when you have trouble otherwise understanding the communication. That is accessibility thanks to AI right there.
Well, VLC has that built in now as well, that basically you can generate subtitles or captions from the audio directly in the video player. But again, the quality is a bit like downloading some pirated subtitle from the movie that you just didn't get on Amazon because they didn't have the subtitles. So sometimes you have like 50 millisecond delay, and you're like other words, and like yeah, bad subtitles used to be a joke. I remember the Lord of the Rings one. That was the Chinese copy, right? The Chinese copy where they wrote their own subtitles, and it was just full of wonderful, wonderful mistakes. But yeah, it should not be that way. And I'm actually worried that people like Amazon, Netflix, and other people are thinking about using AI to generate subtitles and captions for movies, because they're more than just what was said. Normally, it also says like who says it, from which direction that it's coming. It says things about background noises. It says things about the song that's playing right now. And that's something that you normally can't generate automatically from the audio of the video file.
That's true. That's true. Again, you can get really close. Nothing has ever claimed that like anything would be 100% reliable, but it's there. It exists. It only gets better. So I'm actually that's on my positive list. Other things that are on my positive list when it comes to AI is things that actively help in the physical world, right? Like there's applications that actively help, for example, blind people to see and get information about the environment around them, like read signs, like know where crossings are, know where things are that you left them, and you can like literally like ask an AI, "Where's my glasses?" And then like, okay, maybe when you're blind, that's not the first thing you look at. Where's my beer? And then you go around, and it will tell you where it is. Speaking of glasses, Chris, you're in that age as well now. I bet reading glasses are a thing. Like being able to just go ahead and zoom in on stuff using specific apps that help you like read the small print or just read it for you. That is all extremely physical, extremely helpful, and it just works at this point.
And I love that a lot of that stuff came from accessibility needs. I remember like accessibility conferences in Paris 2002, where they showed like mapping a park for somebody who can't see, and basically explained where to turn left and where to turn right, which is now we have that in every car. We have that on our mobile phones. It's a common thing. But back then it was just a physical device that you had to buy and basically use. And now it's basically in every mobile phone. And I don't think we give it enough credit that this magic is happening around us all the time. We just see it as something that's a given. And we only complain about it when it doesn't work. So the other thing that Carl wrote about that I found interesting was that the web accessibility remediation. And this is something that I got really worried about when people get like super excited about vibe coding and code generation for it. And I'm like, so how is the accessibility and the maintainability of the thing that you generated? And I'm like, I just tell ChatGPT to make it AAA compliant, and then it will actually generate an accessible app for me. That's exactly how it works, right?
Yeah, it's exactly how it works.
Yeah.
Nothing to add. No, like that's what I mentioned earlier, right? Like if we can train those LLMs to do in fact the right thing at the right time and have a deeper understanding on what makes a UI accessible or not, we can in fact make a massive impact. Right now, the amount of code that is being written and the amount that comes out being accessible is fuzzy, but it's an opportunity right there.
Yeah, but then again, we had the same when we said we're going to fix it on the level of WordPress and content management systems, and we're going to fix it on the level of Bootstrap. If Bootstrap's going to be accessible, all the components are accessible, you can only build accessible interfaces with it, right? But it's not necessarily that putting lots of putting lots of accessible components together makes one accessible app, right?
No, but it's at the base of it, right? Like if you don't have accessible components, you can do all the best work you want to, and it will still be terrible. But if you have accessible components and you have an accessible framework, and then you not completely mess it up, you're at a higher percentage of having something that is in fact accessible that you can still ruin if you really want to. But there is a much higher chance that it's not going to be bad.
I guess it's also tempting, isn't it? Like, Dan, you're not a person that came from accessibility to development or these kind of things. So when somebody says something like this, it feels like, sure, yeah, that's great, isn't it? Like, let me do it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think in my head, and again, you guys will probably say, no, absolutely not. That's not how it works. Is that I know that accessibility is like a never-ending list, right? And that you could just keep drilling down into things that could be more accessible. But it feels like there must be this some things that you would say this is nearly always good, regardless of the context. Like things that you just say this cannot make it less accessible, so it's a good thing to do as a standard. Like I feel like there must be some absolute core basics, and that if the AI can at least nail those, because I think that, and I'm guilty of it, there's some really bad things that we will go and do. Emma Dawson mentioned it last week, not using native elements because we want to style it differently. So we go and kind of create our own using loads of divs, and we just throw a select in the bin and we think that won't matter. And I feel like that's one of those basics. Yeah. You know, and I want to change my scroll bar like back in the early 2000s. Like it's all of these things that you think, well, if there was somebody that said, okay, that's an absolute must, and as long as you do that, if that can be in the AI, I feel like that can be something that it's almost like a beginner's course for accessibility, and we've at least got that good starting point to build from. But again, I might be completely naive to that. And so, I mean, you're both nodding your head, which is good, because, you know, you're always conscious that you're going to do that. But then people from an accessibility background are going to say, that's not how it works. You know, and that it can never get to that point. But yeah, that's my view on it.
Yeah, no, there's a couple of things that could be really easy. And again, thinking of how a LLM is generating code, right? Like they're obviously doing a mix of these are established pattern and we're just copying what we find, or we're generating HTML line by line, like in an autocomplete kind of way. And in that context, where you as an LLM only know the current line or the current paragraph you're generating, there's a handful of rules that every developer should at this point know. Is like, yes, you're creating a button. That button needs to have a text. There's a link. You can't have that empty. There's an image. You have to have an alt text, describe it. These things happen in that one context, and they can 100% be done. If you're then like creating a CSS design that, if zoomed by 20%, is cutting off some text somewhere, that's a bummer, but that is like at the top 1% of things that can go wrong, right? Like if we can get the basis good, and I know we can get that done, we're winning already.
One thing that worries me is that for years we told people to stop from thinking about a design and turning it into code and turning it into a product that basically is like, here's your Photoshop design, and that's the HTML has to look exactly like that. And we keep telling people there's a living, breathing thing. The fonts, the screen size might be different. It might be zoomed into 400%. It might be a thing that basically people have a different font, or something could not get loaded. So it will never be the idea of making a design and turning it into an app was basically what we told people. This is not how to make the thing accessible. You have to think about the components and make the little components accessible. But now the Cinderella story of like rags to riches is basically just dragging an image into ChatGPT and getting the code generated for you. So we're back in these what you see is what you get days of 1997, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
You went back there for a second, Dirk. Yeah. You
I'm still there. Yeah, no, you're right. It's intense, and I think the things that have changed are massive, right? Like the way that code was generated back then is not even remotely comparable to what it is now. And I'm repeating myself. I feel like there's a whole lot more opportunities today than there were back then in like making the things that are being generated a whole lot better.
You know what?
There's still a lot of work for us to do, for sure.
You know what's also intense? Camping.
I knew it. I knew that was a joke.
Okay. Talking about jokes, this thing I saw the other day.
Oh, I saw it too.
And I posted it on LinkedIn and asked people what's wrong with it, and it got like 20,000 or something, like lots and lots of hits, and it just baffled me. This was part of a readme.md because the problem is that Markdown doesn't allow you to do any styling whatsoever, probably on by design. But at the same time, if you want to have an image that's centered, you cannot do it in Markdown. You have to rely on the template that you're generating HTML with from Markdown to see it. And this is what somebody put in there. And I was just like, holy cow, this is incredible. So let me count the ways. Oh, no, let you count the ways. Dan, what's the first thing that came to you that was like, what's going on there?
Align center. I felt like I'd gone back to the 90s. I wasn't even sure if it was deprecated. I thought it probably still works, but yeah, I don't know. That's the first one.
Yeah, I'm same thing here, right? Like Align Center was the first thing I saw when you just mentioned that it was to be rendered in Markdown. I have to give some credits to the author because yes, it's ugly as hell and it's straight from the 90s, but that's probably the one way to solve this problem in that context, no?
Probably, yeah, but I was amazed as well. Like, I mean, what's next? Like TD Align and like all the stuff we had in the whole tables back then. But yeah, it's that it is still supported fascinated me as well. I thought we kicked it out with HTML5, but we did not. It's still one of the globals that is in there. I guess you cannot break the web. That's
I was going to say that's like the one golden rule for browser vendors, like never break anything. Like, and there's websites out there that probably fully rely on this code to not go up in flames. So yes, I'm sure that's never going away.
I mean, next is the cardinal sin, no alternative text. But and I mean, what people forget is like this is not actually meaning that a screen reader would say like image, but the screen reader will read out the file name. And that could be really, really, if you have like an ImageX or a Cloudinary URL, this could be 20 minutes of their time.
Yeah, it's a good investment right there. Yeah, and it's just meaningless, right? Like having the screener read to you images logo PNG. Thank you. It's exactly what you wanted at that point. And then again, like you could run like the auto alt text generator from your browser and it will tell you, oh yeah, it's probably a logo.
Yeah, probably a logo is my favorite. Yeah, it's like that also means like they probably generated with AI and didn't ask a designer to create a logo. What's the next thing in the image that's problematic there, Dirk? Let's test your old HTML skills there. What's wrong with that image?
So I have to admit, I did read the comment thread, and there were people like, oh, width and height, you don't need that anymore. I have different experiences there, like the amount of things that like pop into size when it's a bigger one. Like imagine that the image, that logo PNG is based on the quality of that code, probably like a 5 megabyte file that has been handed over from the designers right away. And if that loads and you have not put in the width and the height, it will like do like this massive like kill everything and then go back. So the width and height, I would probably put in. I don't think you need a PX though.
Yeah, exactly. That's the problem. PX is actually not in HTML5. It basically it reads the first integer and then it actually does away with whatever you put in there. except for percentage. So I think that there's still some weird bit in there as well. But yeah, width and height, I agree. I think there was also people that commented width only is enough because it has the image. It expects that the image is in the right aspect ratio, which I don't expect anything anymore after that many years on the web. But in terms of performance, like every performance best guidelines tell you to put a width and height in, even if you resize it later on with CSS, which you probably will. But it also tells the browser upfront what to actually, in terms of memory consumption, how much actually it would generate a bitmap for. Like if it doesn't have anything, if it doesn't have any size in there at all, then it will take the full size of the image and actually already create a layer or a bitmap for you in the rendering process. So making that smaller would be an interesting thing. The next thing is BR, and I remember Thierry from Yahoo that I didn't know he still lives, and he came on the comment thread as well. And I mean, this is the self-closing XHTML thing. That's the first bit that is basically we could spend an hour on that. But I just think BR is bloody useless. BR to me feels like a like remnant of HTML 3.2. Like if you mean it, use a paragraph. If you just need a break into a next line, I guess in code display, source code display, but then it makes more sense to have like a pre-element to actually just automatically do the line breaks without you having to describe them. So BR seems to be like a semantic, non-semantic.
Well, it by definition has no semantic meaning. Yes, again, like the self-closing XHTML just took me all the way back. It was all the rage back then. It might, again, with the context you gave me earlier that I must have missed out in the original thread, if it's meant to work on a markdown page that has otherwise you as an author have no influence on how it's styled, it might again be the one way to like get it done. I'm torn.
Doesn't it even the markdown page would put every line break as a BR in there as well, or as a new paragraph?
If it's 2 line breaks.
Okay, yeah, okay. But yeah, this was fun to see it not. But it's interesting to see that these things exist. And again, if you meet a browser maker, hug them, buy them a beer or some non-alcoholic drink, because we make this crap work. Like even you can do whatever you want, and we actually make things kind of render. And I think that's a very important thing, that the backwards compatibility of browsers is a huge thing in there. But don't do that. Just make think about the children or whatever. Make sure that they're actually not doing this. Now, I wrote this lovely words thing that was also in the background that actually is just about showing you wonderful English words one after the other if you just click on things. Wow, cool.
That one I had to see.
Incredible.
I played a lot with that. It's absolutely lovely, Chris. I saw this and I immediately fell in love. It's such a beautiful thing.
I think that there's a few things in there that I've done that I'm very proud of, and especially one thing that I keep people see people. I think I have the source code somewhere. Yeah, that's it. One thing that people keep forgetting is that DT exists, like definition lists with
definition term,
definition list with definition term and definition description.
Yeah.
So that's basically rendering. This is what you do to have a word and a description of it, and it is one of those HTML things that kind of threw me, because the structure of it. Like a UL has LIs in it, and then everything else becomes a child of the LI. A DL has a DT and a DD on the same level. And I don't know any other HTML element that does that.
What happens if you remove that? You know, as in, because that's a strange one, isn't it? It's just like as siblings. If you were to remove it's fine still. Yeah, you don't have to go together, right? Is what I'm trying to get at. You can
one defines the other, literally. So I'm not sure, like Chris, were you part of that discussion back at Yahoo 100 years ago when we thought about changing the FAQ to this markup? And there was like, Dan, for you to give context, there was like a team of like 70 or so web devs, all with the extreme passion for like web standards and accessibility. Like they all at peak their game, and there was, imagine a room of those 70 discussing back and forth on why and why not. To this day, one of the best HTML conversations ever. And this is probably the second time that I see it in use since, and it's the right one.
The first time I saw it was the bookmarks.html file from Netscape.
Nice.
That one actually generated a DL, and that was where I learned about it, and it was still in uppercase. I looked it up yesterday. There's also the thing that you can have several terms that all have the same meaning, or several descriptions of the same term. So you can repeat those as well. So you can have like two DTs and three DTs depending on what you want to do. So it's one of those forgotten things, and I'm also very, very proud of myself for the name of the CSS file.
Oh God, what did you do?
There's Easter eggs everywhere in your projects, Chris.
Yeah, we gotta have those. I mean, there's Next React View Angular.html.js is the JavaScript file, so I think that makes sense. So I ended up actually taking the words into a Markdown file, and then generate them all with PHP, because I realized in HTML itself we had a few pull requests and people didn't know how to do it. So this is now basically the way to do it, and this is also meaning that LLMs will come by and I will make £1 million with that thing.
At least.
But it's just do something like that. Just have fun with it. And then the fun thing was that I asked a vibe code editor to do the same thing. So I gave it the Markdown file and said, like, make an app that actually looks modern, that shows one word at a time, and it doesn't work. And basically the functionality is not there, so it doesn't show the words, but it generated tons and tons of JavaScript, and this is actually what it thought a modern website would look like. And I have no idea what's going on there. And then you told me the same thing. Like, it feels like we see these great videos of people using vibe coding and like talking to the editors and building like $1 million game in like 3 minutes. But when we do that, garbage like that comes out of it.
I don't believe that. I don't believe when people say they can do those things, because I think my own experience is it mostly does give me things like that, Chris. And I'm sure somebody's there going, it's your prompt that's not good enough. But no, I think that it's AI is like, it's what we said, it's like it's pretending to be a human, right? And it's just doing its best, and it doesn't really know what a human would do. It's just trying its best. And what we end up with is something that humans look at and go, well, that's not very good, or that's weird, or why have you done that? I don't know how. It's like that uncanny valley. It's like, how do we ever break that point where it can really pass? Because I mean, Comic Sans, I know accessibility, I'll leave that conversation, but that's an insult.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, the contrast of the button is another bit, I think, that's interesting there. And word 0 of 0. If you write a functionality like that, like just set limits, like if you say, like, if the count is 0, then probably don't show the label, like throw an error instead. Like, it's a fascinating bit to see. Now, other technology stuff, CSS mixins are coming, and I'm super excited about that.
Yes, I mean, this is SAS all over again. It's coming back. I saw the article ahead of time, and I was like, yeah, this all feels very familiar, right? Because this is all like things that CSS is now taking back from when SAS was big. It's useful. It's nice. I'm happy it comes. Again, we had this like how long ago? 10, 15 years ago?
But now it's the same with like CSS variables or CSS custom properties. Exactly. Like SAS variables were supposed to be the people say like, oh, it's like SAS variables. It's not, because in SAS you generate them and then you have static CSS.
That's
with custom attributes. You basically can alter them from JavaScript. You can create them with JavaScript. They can actually override them with a style attribute inside your component as well. Yeah. They're quite three-dimensional across languages, and SAS was always a preprocessor, and that was that.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like the fact that you can change it at runtime, so many opportunities to do terrible things there. But at the base, it feels like, and it's probably going to be used in the same way, mostly the way it was used in SAS back then. The fact that it is now changeable at runtime, it's amazing. It's probably not going to be used a whole lot. Like put a marker in here and remind me in 10 years when everybody's changing at Frontend.
I'm kind of worried about, I'm actually happy I'm not working in the Chrome developer tools anymore, because debugging that thing in the CSS editor and finding out where which thing came from. I mean, we render the final CSS tree and allow you to debug that one. But this is basically, we need, much like pre-processing, we need to find a way like where the original mix-in or function came from. So there's we need source maps inside CSS. So it's going to be interesting that way.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this comes along with like a lot of other cool things that are happening recently. Like just like, and you mentioning to try to debug a container query or something. It's definitely not getting easier, but the fact that you can do all of these things that we not even dare to dream about 20 years ago has been wonderful.
Well, we've just been at the State of the Browser conference, and Mario Matuzovic, not Mario, not Mario. Manuel Matuzovic. Yeah, I made fun of the organizer because he pronounced it like Manuel from Schwarty Towers instead of like Manuel. And he gave a talk on color in CSS, and also color models and color spaces. And then I basically said like it was the best advertising for using Tailwind ever, because it just looked so complex, but at the same time it's great that we have this granular control. But yeah, what did you take away from that then? So
yeah, no, it was really good. I mean, I like anything to do with color, and I think I did think the same. I was like, I feel quite safe with Tailwind actually compared to this. But I've also, I've got a site out there that sort of works with color, and I put RGBA in there, and I put I've gone blank. I put hex codes in there. But what I didn't do was HSL. And then I've thought about doing that because it's so much easier to kind of, get a color palette from one color. And then I'm seeing, the ones that they were using in Manuel's talk. And there's a whole load, and actually it's impossible, isn't it, to get that standardized look across different devices in different color profiles. It feels like a complete minefield. So I did end up going, yeah, I'm quite safe with Tailwind, actually. Tailwind, Hex, RGBA, and HSL. That's enough for now for me.
I was fascinated by that whole concept of like, if a color space is not defined, or it's outside the color space, that the browser rendering or even the operating system rendering does like a guess and just puts the closest color to it, and that's why you get like a blue that's a yellow, and like a blue that's a purple, and all kind of stuff. I think it's the picture of that dress over and over again, isn't it?
Yeah, it was silver.
This was an interesting one. Area label needs a valid role. So basically, instead of putting area label on the SVG, you have to put it on the button.
Yes. So funny enough, I did an internal demo and article about this very similar example. One thing that the author here is missing out on is that SVG has a title attribute. And if you use that, it's all good. So he's just missing that part, and then you don't need to add anything on top. Otherwise, yes, it makes sense, because coming from the accessibility point of view, anything that can receive focus is suggesting you can interact with it. And when you can interact with it, it's suggesting that it's a thing that you can interact with, and meaning it needs to have a role, right? Like in that list of logic, it makes total sense. If you're placing an SVG somewhere and as an icon, then it has a title, it's perfectly fine, unless, and that is a big disappointment from my side, you're linking it out, because then the title doesn't do anything.
Mm-hmm. And then so basically, if you source to the SVG rather than having as an inline SVG.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's. I guess this is also the reason why there's so many empty links and buttons in that WebAIM report, because people just use SVGs and use like Bootstrap or whatever. There's 10,000 icon things out there, and probably they didn't have a title, and that's why it's empty and it doesn't show anything. And just a reminder, if you use Chromium like everybody does, except for a few people, and you do analyze the things, just roll over it, and then you see if something has a role. In this case, it has a role paragraph, and that's actually safe to put an area label on. Like, you also see if it has enough contrast. You also see if it's keyboard focusable or not. So if you even if you don't want to tab through the whole page and understand what's going on there, you can just use that picker that you're using anyways to fix the margin and padding and understand what Flexbox might be about. So this functionality is in that information overlay already in there. So there's not many excuses that you have that I wouldn't know that a link is keyboard accessible, whereas 20 divs and a span isn't. Declarative web push. I haven't looked much into it, but that's from the WebKit team at the moment. Has any one of you closer looked at it? I thought it was an interesting idea because service workers are a tough thing to get your head around, but having it more as a declarative thing might make people understand web push better. Are you using web push for anything at the moment?
I've not even seen that article. I have no clue. I assume it's push messages and giving you a way to like trigger those in a declarative way, but I have no insights in that whatsoever.
It mentioned some things in there around kind of privacy concerns and sort of how it could play in with things like almost the cookie banners. There's some suggestion in there of those kinds of things. I mean, yeah, I didn't sort of get too much of kind of what I was meant to take from it, but at least I think it's that idea of like, how can we kind of resemble these things that would be done in mobile apps using the web, and then how easy it is. I think that was kind of what you're supposed to take from it.
It was the #1 request when I worked on Firefox OS, and we said like PWAs and like the PWA standards, what we came up with. The #1 request was basically, we need push notifications. And they're never used for anything useful. They're just used as an upsell. And like, to me, they always felt like the new pop-up just on your mobile phone. Because I mean, the amount of times that I really get information on my mobile phone that I actually want, like, okay, your flight is now at gate A06 rather than A27, so you probably should walk faster to the other thing. That's important. But like, MediaMarkt has new deals for you. Don't care. It feels like it feels like a very noisy UX thing to consider, and that's where also accessibility issue, because it can be a very useful accessibility feature, but it also can be super distracting when you're doing something else.
Yeah, if you ever tested a website using a screen reader and you have, let's say, push messages enabled on your important emails, and you're testing this document, and every couple of minutes this notification is being read instead. Yes, I can get how that can be extremely distracting, but then I'm very picky when it comes to defining what can and what cannot set notifications. So usually the ones that end up in my eye are the ones that are important. So I appreciate them. And if it's easier to do it, all for it, as long as it can be nicely configured and I can silence them when I need to.
And don't do that when I load the page asking me if I wanna give it notification access. I choose to do that at the end of a checkout or something like that. Fine, but don't just say like, the first thing that I want to do. I also realized a lot of websites these days actually give you that pop-up of Gmail automatically logging in with Google. I don't know what that is actually, what feature, what API that is. Like, it must be something that Google offers you. You might know. Like, you go to the page and you basically just like, it pops up on the top right side, like, which one of your Google things do you want to log into the page with? And I'm like, I haven't even shown interest in that page yet. But it seems like there's a simple way to actually give people a login with Google interface.
Oh yeah, for sure. It's like we had back in the days with like Facebook and stuff. It's a simple API that you can include, and it will then see if there is an existing signed in Google account, and then offers you to sign in with it. Frankly, maybe I've suppressed that. I don't see it, or at least not about.
I'm wondering about this, and I probably should have to ask somebody else. I would probably ask Noe Watson to come around to this thing. There's an accessibility statement for the European accessibility thingy, and it basically tells you like what does the law state and how to actually, which parts you have to include and how to write it. I thought it would be a generator, but it kind of isn't. But it still is an interesting thing to like, what do you have to put there so you can't get sued, kind of thing. Like, what do you think about EAA? I mean, it's coming in July, I think. And probably people are freaking out about it internally and externally right now, aren't they?
Sure. Yeah. No, it's another strong motivator. Like the good news is that, or at least for me, my team, is that pretty much all of the things that are now being asked for, you were able to get sued in the US for many years already. So there was a lot of driving force for that. Coming from my very personal point of view as the lead of the Accessibility Discovery Center here, and like the amount of folks that are now coming in, having heard of EAA and now being aware that the website that they run, or the business that they run on the web is now out of a sudden, because it's been known in Europe, or I mean Switzerland, right? So we're not really Europe, but they have a lot of like contacts to the surrounding countries just as well. So out of a sudden there is this like extra push of motivation of saying, hey, I really care about accessibility right now. So I'm all for it. I'm happy it exists. From what I understand is that it's beginning to roll out across the different European countries one by one, and each of them has the opportunity to have their own requirements. So right now we're like in this phase where we're trying the best to accommodate, and then we'll see what each country has in terms of like the diffs between them. But yeah, if you've been caring about accessibility beforehand and you've been testing and you didn't try to get sued in the US, then you're probably in a pretty good state. It's really just this like extra push for motivation right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's an interesting one. I mean, Italy had their own, and France had their own, Germany had their own, so that we had to, whenever it did to do compliance for like our developer tools, it was just sometimes painful what we had to do for each of them. So yeah. I'm happy it actually becomes now one thing for the European whole area. And there's also a lot of like comparisons, like what does it mean with WCAG? What does it mean with the American 508 standard? Like, you can geek out about this, but basically I like that this one explains to you what you need to do just to have it in your statement. And then, and I think much like a code of conduct, posting it that you have it is not enough. You also have to enforce the thing and make sure that you do the things that are in your statement.
Yeah, I assume, I have not seen this page specifically. I assume it's something like a somewhat automated VPAT generator. I'm not sure if you heard about VPATs. It's like that. We're working on it, right? And with the idea of like a big spinner, yeah. And I assume this is something along those lines, that you're creating a VPAT that folks that see your website can look at and say, okay, this is now you telling the world that you're actively in the process of embracing accessibility standards, and so you're not getting sued right now, but that is not something that you can use in infinity. It's in the contrary, it's something that tells very clearly that yes, you're working on it, and now it's expected for you to have progress over this, right?
Well, the last bit we have here is an interesting one as well. There's basically, it's an NPM module, I think, that is basically improved relative time. So instead of just saying like when day 0, when Jesus was born, you can actually do like adhesive and alcohol fermentation and automatic atomic clock, all kind of stuff. It's just absolutely hilarious what kind of ways you can do time with that. And I guess it's glib, but at the same time, it just shows how much the JavaScript world is thinking about date and time right now. I mean, Dan, you looked at into the temporal API, and I think this is just a piss take version of it.
Yeah, I'm desperate for the temporal API. I really am. You know, I was actually looking at it last night just because I was dealing with dates, and I just went and had a look at the page, and it was almost like this is what we could have. You know, this could be so much fun. But yeah, no, I love that though. the relative time. I mean, it's so clever because actually each of those, like you just showed, goes out to the Wikipedia page as well. And I mean, I don't know how he's even done that. I'm assuming that's just built on top of like, you know, so it's an NPM package, so built on top of normal. He's had to deal with normal JavaScript dates in order to get to that. So
yeah, and then they scrape Wikipedia for something that matches that specific time, I assume.
Yeah. Impressive.
Well, I can't wait until we start referring to, hey, remember around 2K AA or 2.4? What is it? It just rolls off the tongue. It's intuitive. That's what it is.
Women gain the right to vote in UK 30 BIC.
Before the integrated circuit.
That's lovely. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Cool.
Imaginative.
Well, I mean, we're almost out of time, and well, we're over time. But it was great to have you again, Dirk. It's always fun to see you. I remember the time when I visited you in the Silicon Valley, and I went to the airport and opened the boot of my car to get you something, and your dog jumped in and she wanted to come with me. I'm on the way to the airport, and I just got some bottle or something out of the boot, and basically the dog just jumped in and they're like, "Oh, walkies, we're going to drive somewhere." That was just wonderful.
Obviously, I know. I would have loved to jump into.
Such a great dog.
I love this. Dan, it's very nice to meet you too.
And you. It was great to meet you. We'd love to have you on the show again.
Oh, I'd be kicked out of the room as well, so that's
all
perfect
right.
time.
Cool. So that was it with We Are Developers Live for today. See you next Wednesday, and the recording of this will be out soon, so see you in the recording. And well, thanks for Dirk for visiting us, and thanks for Dan for hosting, and all the people involved of making this happen. And thanks for all of you chatting and being here with us. So see you next week.
Thank you.